Poverty. My name is Amy. I'm the person behind the logo of Disability Without Poverty this evening. And I've got Brent Manuel as our co-host. And we've also got Rosalind, I believe, Rosalind, who is standing in for Mike Morris this evening because Mike is busy with a number of votes and running late in the House of Commons this evening. So maybe we can just quickly have our speakers to go around and just briefly introduce themselves, and then we can start off with questions after. So maybe I'll ask Rabia to introduce herself first.
Hello, good evening, everybody. This is my first Twitter space, so can you hear me out there? I hope you can. My name is Rabia Khidr. I'm talking to you from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, the traditional territories of our First Nations peoples, most recently the Mississaugas of the New Credit. And I have the privilege of being the National Director for Disability Without Poverty. And I am a person with a disability. I'm blind.
Excellent. Next, could we have Michelle?
Good evening, everybody. Yes, this is also my first time on Twitter Space. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to taking part. I'm coming to you from Kelowna, BC, and I'm as Amy said, I'm a co-chair here at Disability Without Poverty, and I'm also a disabled woman. If anybody can see my avatar, that's me in my wheelchair with my dog in front of me, as I'm somebody who has MS. But I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Great. Kathy, would you like to speak now? Introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Kathy Brown. I'm an associate producer at CBC in Vancouver. I am visually impaired myself, and I have produced an award-winning series on disability called Access Denied. And I'm speaking to you from the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Okay, and on behalf of our MP, Mike Morris, who was the one that sponsored the petition that's open right now on the Canada Disability Benefit, Rosalind.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting us to participate tonight. As mentioned, MP Mike Morris is stuck in the House of Commons right now. He was really looking forward to being here tonight and participating in this conversation, but unfortunately there's a number of votes that are happening that he can't miss. For my part, an old friend of Mike's and a new staffer with him as he's starting out in Ottawa. Before I was working with him, I spent the last 11 and a half years working at a local organization in Waterloo region that was supporting older adults and people with different abilities. So I'm happy to be joining this conversation tonight, and we're joining Mike as the MP for Kitchener Centre, which is located on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Attawandaron neutral people on Block 2 of the Haldeman Tract. So thanks for having us as part of this chat.
Rosalind, why don't you start us off, because the title of the conversation we have tonight is on disability, poverty, and the throne speech. And I'm sure a lot of us were disappointed that we didn't hear the explicit words Canada Disability Benefit during that throne speech. So maybe you could just, on behalf of Mike, let us know what that means for us in terms of how we can make sure that we can get this benefit realized, even though it wasn't explicitly mentioned in the throne speech.
Sure, absolutely. So the petition that you were referring to before is the first petition that Mike is sponsoring as a member of Parliament in the House of Commons. And so I'm happy to walk everyone through kind of the petition process. And also we can talk a little bit about what it will take in terms of kind of cross-party support, not only for this petition to gain traction, but for the Canada Disability Benefit to gain traction overall. So just for some background, any Canadian resident or citizen is able to draft a petition and bring it to a member of parliament to request for them to sponsor it. And then once it has the minimum amount of signatures, so in our case with this electronic petition, I think we surpassed the minimum of 500 signatures within the first couple of days. I was really excited tonight to see that we now have over 8,700 signatures. For a petition paper, you need 25 signatures, but after that minimum has been met and after this set timeline has passed, the petition is verified, and then the sponsor MP or another MP they've delegated it to can present it in the House of Commons. After an MP presents a petition, the government has 45 days to provide an official response. Because of the nature of them, petitions really are one of the most direct means of communication between, quote, the people and parliamentarians. So they're seen as a vehicle for Canadians to provide political input or a way of influencing policymaking and legislation in between elections. So I see even some of the Twitter users that are joining us tonight, I've seen some of them being quite active and supportive. Sometimes petitions take a lot longer to reach the minimum, and sometimes they don't reach the minimum in order to be presented. So I have been blown away by the community that has rallied around this petition, has been sharing this petition, encouraging others to sign on. And beyond that, I would encourage individuals who are interested in seeing support behind the disability benefit to write their MPs, call their MPs, approach their member of parliament in their own area. From our perspective, our team working in Ottawa, we are also using this petition just as one tool to really try and, get the government to do what they've said they were going to do. So the Canada Disability Benefit was first introduced in the last Parliament. It had its introduction and its first reading in the House of Commons, but we're kind of going back to square one since the dissolvement of Parliament interrupted the process for this Canada Disability Benefit. Oftentimes, governments will reintroduce the same bill word for word, but there is space for change, as we just saw in the conversion therapy bill that just passed with some improvements. So there's lots of opportunities for everybody that's listening today to continue to push and get involved. From our team side, we're looking at everything from connecting with other members of parliament across party lines, across the country, who may be supportive advocates of this particular benefit. And we're looking at the different ways we can talk to others about the issue. So this includes writing letters to the minister and using times in the House of Commons to highlight the need.
Great. Thank you so much. So is there anyone in our panel that wants to jump in and respond?
This is Michelle. Yeah, I'm happy to respond for a while. I think the petition has been this wonderful vehicle for us to be able to capture the support of so many Canadians who want to put voice to how they feel about the situation of disabled people who live in poverty. Earlier this year, right after the election, we put out a letter that was going to be from 100 Canadians to the Prime Minister, and it was 200 Canadians, and we were taken with quite a flood of people that wanted to sign up. So I'm really excited that we were able to divert people to be able to do that one little act, to sign a petition, to show, to put their voice to something. You're only given 250 words, and when you write a petition that's going to be out there for 60 days or so, you've got to make sure that it's something that's still relevant when it gets to, as Rosalind just said, at the end of that, we have we not only do we have then it be read in Parliament, but potentially another 45 days that the government can respond. So I think that things change quite quickly, as we've sort of seen with the conversion therapy bill and whatever. So we needed to write something that was going to stay relevant for that length of time, even though we know at Disability Without Poverty we have a number of priorities that we want to see be followed through in that in the bill, and then the way that the Canada Disability Benefit comes to fruition. So I think the petition's a wonderful vehicle. Disappointed, of course, that the Canada Disability Benefit wasn't mentioned in the throne speech. But last Friday, International Day of People with Disabilities, the Prime Minister put out a statement in which he said that Canada Disability Benefit is going to happen. And some of us with Disability Without Poverty were in a panel discussion, a roundtable that Minister Qualtrough was also attending. And she also was adamant. She went off script to tell us that this benefit is going to happen. So, I think we have a vehicle here with the petition to keep pressure on, to keep the name out there of what we want. And we're in a place where beyond that, I think we now need to start moving on to talk about what our priorities are and what we really need to make happen for disabled people living in poverty, so that this benefit really makes substantive change to their lives. I'll let someone else talk for a bit. Everybody else is
Kathy,
on
Rabia, anybody?
It's Kathy here. Since I'm talking from a media perspective, I think, for the most part, I really applaud what's been done so far to get that petition out in front of people and to encourage people to sign it. And from what I'm looking at it right now, I see that we're up to 8,735 signatures, and we have until 22nd of January, 11th of January to keep on signing it. So I think we ought to post it as part of this conversation, so that people who are listening right now can actually take advantage and sign it right away. And I think that it's important that we keep on talking, and I have, done what I can to put this front and center. Michelle was actually on BC Today over the Lower Mainland and all of BC actually today to talk about poverty, the effects of poverty and on people with disabilities. And she was very forthright and very forceful, and it was a marvelous interview. And I have retweeted that so that people can listen to it. I think it's important. We have to maintain momentum, and that's so much part of getting the word out, is not stopping at one message, and to keep that message consistent and to keep it frequent. And from my point of view, I'll continue to do what I can to do that through my work at CBC. But I think that if there's any other media listening out there, we have a responsibility, I think, to be able to shed some light on issues that don't immediately come to mind. So that's part of my mandate and my commitment, and I'll continue to do that.
And maybe, Amy, I can jump in here. It's Rabia. And, again, just taking from what Kathy's just said, we really need to raise awareness in order to encourage people to sign onto this petition. We need to dispel some of the myths or misperceptions that Canadians have of people with disabilities. There's a general sense that people with disabilities are provided for by the system. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, there are income support programs, but they are inadequate. And most people with disabilities are underemployed, unemployed, and on assistance, therefore living in poverty. The largest minority group within people living in poverty are disabled people. And as a society, we need to really reflect on what does that say about us? We pride ourselves as one of the top countries to live in, one of the best places to be on earth. And yet, people in our society who are the most vulnerable are the least supported by the system, are insufficiently supported by the system. So if we want to see our friends and neighbors be able to buy food, buy basic pain meds over the counter, be able to go out to appointments, be able to go shop for their basic needs, be able to buy those extra services that are not provided by any other program to maintain a basic lifestyle, then we must sign this petition, because people with disabilities don't have enough income support to live an okay life. We're not talking about thriving. We're not talking about a great, comfortable life. We're talking about an okay life. And therefore, we need to sign this petition. We need to share this petition with others. We need to educate people around ourselves, because 8,700 signatures sounds like a lot, but it's really a drop in the bucket when our population is 34 million and 22% of people are people with disabilities. And out of those people with disabilities, maybe 1 in 4 live in poverty. Not good enough. And this petition is a vehicle to have our voice heard in our democratic process.
That was well put, Rabia. Actually, Brent, I'd like you to. Oh, sorry, Michelle. Did you want to speak? Go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to continue. What Rabia was talking about. Obviously, as you know, her and I talk about these things a lot, and so we know the numbers behind this and the reality to it. But this is the way. This is some of the way for people to think about it. So if you're somebody who, as Rabia said, people think that disabled people are taken care of in some way, and that's just not the case. So let's think, if you're in one of our big cities, Toronto, Vancouver, and so on, the poverty line there is just over $2,000, 2,028 in Vancouver, I think. In Ontario, ODSP is 1,100 and something. In BC, PWD, as we know it colloquially, is 1,358. So there's a huge gap there between the regular poverty line, as calculated by the government, and the provincial payment. However, we know that it costs more to be disabled than it does not to be disabled. We don't have Canadian data on it, but we have data from countries that are pretty similar to us: Ireland, Australia, the UK. And for the level of disability that someone has to be eligible for those types of assistance, it costs 40% more. So what we're talking about then is a poverty line of $2,500. So now that $1,300, that $1,100 from PWD, ODSP, and all of the, across the country, looks even worse. it's less than half. And this is the situation people with disabilities were in before the pandemic, during the pandemic. And if you saw the news today, food prices are set to go through the roof, and people with disabilities, there's no way that people with disabilities who live in poverty can catch up. So, the reality of this situation, the desperate need that people with disabilities had before the pandemic, and how that's been exacerbated, is something that we just, as a country, we know, people believe it's something that has to be worked on, and it has to be worked on quickly. So the petition, as Rabia says, 8,700 signatures. Thank you all extremely much, whatever that, very much. And but it is a drop in the ocean, and we really need your support so that everybody sees that this is the country is united behind this, that no disabled person in Canada should have to live in poverty. And sorry, I'll Amy, I can pass it on, say to Brent for you, because he hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, this idea actually started from Brent reaching out to me asking if I wanted to have a Twitter space co-hosted with him to have this discussion on disability and poverty. So Brent, I'd like to learn a little bit more actually about what got you interested to bring all of us together this evening.
Well, two main reasons what got me interested in bringing all of you together was the petition and not hearing anything about the disabled community in the throne speech.
What were you hoping to hear in the throne speech about the disability community?
Well, I was hoping to hear about some kind of payment to help the disabled community out.
Okay.
Maybe I can jump in here, Amy. Yeah, there was no mention in the throne speech, but the good news is the Prime Minister did recognize the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and in his statement clearly mentioned, named, highlighted the Canada Disability Benefit and his government's commitment to it. So this is really exciting that there is commitment, but to make sure that that commitment is honored in a way that people with disabilities need it to be, we have to work with government to shape this benefit, to design it, and to ensure its full implementation so that people with disabilities actually benefit from this benefit. That's really, really important. So although it wasn't mentioned in the throne speech, there does seem to be commitment on part of government that they have expressed now publicly for the Canada Disability Benefit. And we have to make sure that, they're starting a consultation process, but we don't want to just get stuck in consulting. We want solid legislation. We want that legislation tabled, regulations established so that people with disabilities living in poverty can get that money in their pockets as quickly as possible.
Good evening, everyone. I was just wondering if I could just jump in for a minute.
Sure. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brent Weatherman. I'm actually from British Columbia, Canada here. I'm a strong advocate and have been following all of you. I think most of you probably follow me too weatherman. So I'm a person with disability, and I've, like I say, a strong advocate. I believe in everything that you guys are all doing, and kudos to every single one of you. And I know we all have diverse disabilities, right? And a lot of us born with disabilities. They never go away. You're born with it, and there's no fault of our own. But the system has been designed to basically suppress us down, right? And we can't allow that to continue. A lot of the disability rates across Canada have been designed that way. Basically you have to choose between food and rent and all your basic necessities versus living below poverty. And some people will say, well, you can get over it, right? I mean, go and get a job. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, for me personally, I was employed for many years and I couldn't do the kind of work that I used to be able to do. And so I'm very limited on what I can do. I'd love to go and get a job, a part time job, but I'm so limited on what I can do. And so now the system says, oh, okay, well, then you just have to live with what you get. I'm sorry, well, we can't afford to raise rates. Fiscal reasons are always excuses, right? So having a disability benefit across the countrywide, where everything's included, your medical, everything, and it's fairer for everybody because the cost of living, as a few of you have mentioned, that I can't recall who had mentioned there, but yeah, the cost of living is going up. I just read that today, and 5 to 7% on average, but I mean, reality is probably going to be even higher than that, right? I mean, fresh produce to try to eat healthy, and it's hard. It's very difficult, and especially when you have a special diet that you have to eat certain kind of foods, eh? Yeah, I mean, I think it should be no less than like, I mean, putting a dollar figure on it is really difficult, but with the cost of living and rent, I mean, rents are skyrocket across the country. I mean, in British Columbia here, I mean, I live in Victoria, the capital city, and it's expensive here. I can't just go to any store that I want. I have to pick and choose, trying to get the cheapest stuff I can and hope that it's on the shelf when I get there. I mean, it's high. Rents are like, $1,600, $1,700 a month. As a person with disability here, we get $375 for our shelter. We have to use our support to basically pay for the difference of rent, and which makes it very hard to do that. And so I've been advocating trying to raise the shelter, but really, I think just remove the shelter portion, right, and just raise the actual rates. But there's always a reason not to do it. I mean, our rates have been frozen. So like Ontario, theirs is at what, 497, I believe it is. Ours at 375. We also had a COVID amount, a supplement during the epidemic, which is not going away anytime soon. We had $300 that was given to us. They took it away and they gave us back 175 of it. They did a report for a UBI that actually indicated that needs to be made permanent. That was back in December of last year. So nothing's come forward on it. And so, yeah, I mean, giving everybody a basic standard of living where they can choose to live wherever they want in the country and pay for their basic food, rent, utilities, medications, I mean, accessibility equipment, whatever the case may be. I think it's a lot better than provincial rates because they're all no less than what, 43% or 40% below the poverty line, eh? So yeah, like I say, I'll conclude for now. If anyone wants to ask me other questions, I mean, I'll have my mic on here and I can listen into our whole conversation. But once again, I just want to say thank you to all of you for everything that you're doing. I stand behind you and everything. I know that there's some advocates out there. I'm sure probably some of you might have been following recently. There's one advocate in particular. He's calling for a CRPD, which is a Canadian Rights of Persons with Disabilities. There was a message thread the other day, and I got my my anxiety up pretty high because I know what he's trying to advocate for, and he's kind of going for what the disability poverty, like the our rates, like a flat rate. But he also says that we have rights that have been signed by the federal government that was put into law, but no province wants to commit to it. It's BC Disability, eh? So yeah, it was kind of people saying, well, why are you not wanting us to have a certain set rate? Well, he wants to have the standard set first, then get the rate going. Well, everyone's suffering in the country. I think we need to get the rates going first, then maybe tie that into the rates after, because I think people need the help now. What do you all think on that? I'll wait for you guys' response, and if you want me to chip in more, then I will. Thanks.
Does anybody want to respond to Brent, or I guess we've kind of gotten into our Q&A section now for this evening.
If
I could, I'd like to give you the perspective of somebody actually living in poverty with disabilities.
Do you mind if I just respond to the first question there?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. I was just going to say, you know, yes, there's lots of rights work that needs to be done for people with disabilities. There are, you know, obligations that we have committed to under the Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and, you know, provinces aren't necessarily acting upon those. We're not really, you know, moving forward beyond signing off on those rights under the convention. But the Canada Disability Benefit is the low-hanging fruit. It's been, you know, lowered to us to grab. And it is our job as people with disabilities to grab onto it and hang on tight and make sure we can squeeze every ounce that we can out of it for the benefit of people with disabilities living in poverty. So we have to do the work to make sure that people live up to the promises they are making. And that's where, you know, us working on this specific benefit comes in. It doesn't mean that everything else is less important. It just means that we're seizing an opportunity while all that other work also continues. So I'm sorry, somebody there living in poverty wanted to speak, Amy, I believe.
Yeah, go ahead, Dune.
Yeah, hi there. My name's Siko Staley. I live in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And I'm not sure whether the listeners in the panel may be aware of the fact, but New Brunswick doesn't have any sort of provincial disability support program at all. All disabled people in New Brunswick go through the regular social services system, and if they have disabilities, they're judged on a case-by-case basis, and you'll really be shocked to find out what the maximum is for a single adult in New Brunswick. It's $800 a month. So my CPP disability is already in excess of what the province gives, and I get just over $900 a month through CPP disability. So given all of that, I'm a little confused as to why we are praising the current federal government for another round of empty words that they tweeted out last Friday during the International Day of Disability Awareness, when the only somewhat concrete direction that we've received from Minister Qualtrough and Prime Minister Trudeau is that they're working really hard to establish a panel that will study a disability benefit sometime over the next 36 months. I don't know about you, but in the next 36 months, my only options are MAID.
This is Michelle. You know, Dune, sorry, that's the name I see on the screen. I hear you. And in Atlantic Canada, in all the provinces, I know that, you know, I'm a person that looks at all the figures and of these things, and the situation dire. I think the point that Rabia was making is that, you know, there's so many things that we need to fix here, right? Our provincial systems across the country, there's so many things that we could say about all of them. And you're right that, you know, what's offered in New Brunswick.
We're having difficulty hearing you, Michelle.
Oh, okay, sorry. Perhaps somebody else should speak then, and I'll switch my feed.
Well, I can pick up on what Michelle's trying to say here. It's Rabia again. Dune, I totally hear you and hear your struggle, and I, you know, acknowledge it. You certainly receive less than most other parts of the country that may have disability specific programs. Options, you know, seem limited. We're not praising the government. What we're saying is we have something on the table that we have to make relevant for people who are living in poverty like yourself. That $900 or so is not sufficient. $1,169 in Ontario is not sufficient. People with disabilities shouldn't have to choose to live or die because of money. And, you know, we really need to hold the government accountable to its promises. What is what Disability Without Poverty is saying. This is what we are saying, that we have something on the table and we have to push hard for it so that you do get more money in your pocket, so your option isn't made. And the 36-month timeline, from what I understand in terms of the consultations, is that they are in the process of finalizing a contract with large national disability organizations that they have brought together to work together on the consultation. Income security is a pillar within that consultation, and that consultation shouldn't take more than a year, we hope. And as Disability Without Poverty, we've been doing some of our own research and design work, and we're going to continue that work, and we're going to do it much faster than government and offer that to them so that they can even speed up further their consultation process.
Okay, thank you, Rabia. I invite Amanda to come and ask her question.
Hi, thank you so much. You're the best neighbors, Canada. I'm in the United States. One approach that I've found to be effective in the disability advocacy space, I may be sitting here in Twitter spaces. I'm also going through Twitter looking for legislators all over the United States. And I send them a message if their DMs are open. Hey, what do you know about this? And I send them an article that's relevant. I keep it concise and I move on. I don't wait for a response. I just keep moving. Bing, bing, bing all day long. And if I hear back, we set up a town hall and we talk about these issues of disability and poverty alleviation. So far, so good, but systemic change takes time. And this is just one step. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. So next we have Joanie.
Hi, thank you very much for having this evening. I have been a disability advocate. Became disabled at the age of 6, but I became a strong disability advocate at the age of 18. And thanks to a University of Windsor professor that I had, I decided in 1999 to wheel my wheelchair from Newfoundland to Ontario. So my heart really goes out with Dune Shadow from New Brunswick, because prior to going out and wheeling my wheelchair on the side of the highway, I researched every single project, which I still have all those figures, by the way, in my laptop and all the documents, because I made a university project out of it. And I live in Ontario, but what got me out on the road is what was happening in Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. Was how much less they were getting than I was getting. And I actually felt guilty. But you know what? I'm laying here tonight on my bed, fighting cancer, dealing with a disability, dealing with a daughter who's also disability, who's fighting for her disability rights. So I think I really agree with Rabbi. I don't know what that noise is.
Yeah, we need to remove him. I'm not a co-host anymore, but Brent, can you remove this person?
Rabbi, what I think what Rabbi had said is that, you know, this is an olive branch and we need to grab onto it. And I'm now 51. So after, you know, many years of advocating, I'm not all in favor of everything they're saying, but we need to grab onto this olive branch and make it happen. Because if it's not going to, it might not benefit us, but it will benefit, you know, the child that is, you know, sitting in school desperately trying to move on. And it's going to make a difference in kids when they turn 18 and become eligible. And if they have to go to a provincial disability program, God help them, because I don't know how people are doing it, because I'm struggling and I'm university educated. I should be able to get a job and I cannot at this time. And I do feel that it's the fact that we need to go cross province and get everyone in every province involved across the border. And this is what I see a lot on Twitter too, is people will get into little groups of, well, we're from here in Ontario or we're from here, and we've got to stop that. We have to band together right across Canada and stand up for our rights. And this is why I don't one thing I don't understand is why a lawyer can't take this to the Human Rights Commission and make a case out of this. I really don't understand why this cannot be done. And believe me, that's where my head has been tracking. My first diploma was a legal assistant. I used to babysit for the top criminal defense lawyer in Windsor. So I'm picking his brain right now all the time and saying to him, like, there's got to be somebody out there in the legal field that can help us. You know, what a project this would be for a university to pick up and run with and gather us all together. I mean, they don't need a 3-year study. I mean, I did it in 6 months. The figures are there. They may not be up to date, but they're they're already there, and it's very easy to do. And I just want to say again to the host, Disability Without Poverty, thank you for having this space tonight. I hope that you have it again. I I'm very grateful to you, and I hope that more people will come and will reach the olive branch that they are doing. I don't agree with everything that is happening in the federal government. I don't agree with all the promises, but they're politicians. But we have to keep them accountable. And that is another thing, is that we do need to keep them accountable of the words that they say. But as for a 3-year study, it's not needed. And I just want to say thank you to everybody again for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Doni. We definitely agree that if CERB was able to be rolled out without any 3-year study, they can definitely do better for people with disabilities. Brent, I believe you had something that you wanted to say?
Well, I just wanted to jump in and say that I did share the petition above. So if anybody wants to interact with sign the petition, the link for the petition is above in this space.
Thank you so much for that, Brent. Bryce, I believe you're next. Please unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my name's Bryce, pronouns he, him. and I'm coming from Scotland, so I'm quite up late tonight on this space. And I'm also a communications officer in the Scottish Green Party's Disabled Members Group. So basically, we are a representative group of disabled activists and members of the Scottish Green Party. And I just wanted to maybe offer based on olive branch, and hopefully maybe look at how we've modelled our model to hopefully see if that could fit in with the Canadian model to try and hopefully provide some inspiration to the activism you're doing in Canada. And I'd love to see if we can be able to work cross-border into Scotland and working together internationally and intersectionally to try and assist you Canadian, amazing Canadian activists to actually fight for the justice you really do deserve. So just to touch upon what's happened in Scotland is that we've recently, thanks to the independence argument, we have won a raft of powers being granted to the Scottish Parliament, where basically we have now got the power of disability benefits for disabled people, and that is getting introduced, but with children first, and then rolled out to adults relatively soon in the next year. And what was really beneficial in that process was that they held an experience panel like a People's Assembly, where they were able to basically bring together the people with lived experience, people who were claimants in the UK model to begin with, and they basically asked them, how have you been treated? What adaptations do you need in the process of obtaining disability benefits, and to assist people into making that as accessible and as inclusive experience possible with the breaking down of barriers. So they held and they still are holding experience panels where you can contribute to that discussion and basically help to form the policy, meeting the policy makers, and help to try and work towards that. And the Scottish Greens are fully committed to actually supporting this, because I mean, the one thing which we're looking to do just now is supporting the incorporation of UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled People into our laws to fully promote and protect and realise disabled people's human rights, because we recognise a case being made for a commission or independent body to uphold these rights, and will consult, and they're consulting disabled people on that proposal. So I think that what I would love to know in this space is how can we internationally, as from Scottish Green Party to the Scottish Green Disabled Members Group, which I'm a committee member of, an executive committee, do to help to amplify your messaging of wanting this to happen and wanting to actually get real justice for disabled people in Canada, because we should be thinking internationally. We should be trying to help and support our allies in this fight for equality, and to basically to try and resolve this, because I'm hearing such very. It's really challenging to hear how Canadians have been treated right now, and I really do hope that that you get the justice you deserve, and I would love to be a co-signer to that petition if I can. So thank you so much for allowing me this space to ask a question. Thank you very much for all your hard work you're doing. And one of the other thing which is even more inspirational as well is that we've been able to elect our first ever Green, well, basically Scottish Greens have now been first co-leader Lorna Slater, who is outspokenly autistic, has finally been able to go into government and a cooperation deal, and basically she is now in the Scottish cabinet and the Scottish government, and that just hopefully goes to show that even though you may have a neurodiverse condition, you can get to power. You can effect change, and I just wanted to say that this goes to show that we can do this, and hopefully you can do it, Canada, and you have my full support and solidarity here. And I just want to say a huge thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And I'm sorry if I've overspoken my allotted time. I just wanted to give that olive branch of support and see what we can do in Scotland to support you guys. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me, and I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bryce. Actually, Rosalind, if you're around, I would love to just have some of your insights, since this is a colleague from the Scottish Green Party who stayed up really, really late just so that he could express his solidarity with you. Maybe you could chime in a little bit there.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining. MP Mike Morris was actually just in Scotland for the first 2 weeks of November for COP, the United Nations Climate Conference. So he actually met with a number of members of the Green Party in the UK and in Scotland. So no, it's amazing that you're tuning in at this hour and everything that you're saying. So absolutely, if there are opportunities for us to learn and to connect, Mike would be happy to follow up afterwards. So feel free to send a direct message to the Twitter account that I'm using here for Mike Morris, and we can connect. I think just listening to everyone talking through, personal situations, and when it feels like there's a huge mountain to climb. I loved what Rabia said about this is low hanging fruit. This is not the end all be all of what we need to accomplish, but since the Canada Disability Benefit already had started and had some traction, this is a great piece for us to grab onto and to keep pushing for, as you said. Overall, we know many of you have talked from different areas of the country that the Ontario Disability Benefit or different amounts of funding available across the country are not sufficient. And we're basically telling people, yes, you've jumped through all the hoops, you've proven medically that you're unable to work or work enough hours or to work consistently enough to be able to cover basic costs of living, or we're only going to give you this much, which is not enough to live on. So we're at a system level sentencing some people who are living with disabilities to a life in poverty. So overall, Mike just knows this is simply the right thing to do. And when he talks about this, he says he wants to get on with turning what may have been seen as impossible into the inevitable. And we do know that Canadians agree. I think Disability Without Poverty shared an Angus Reid poll that was released this past June, where 89% of Canadians said they were in favor of a Canada Disability Benefit as proposed by the federal government in the last Parliament. So we know there's over 1 million Canadians with disabilities who live in poverty. The more people we can reach with this petition, and just one more kind of bit of, I guess, advocacy advice. If you live in a riding where this might not be your Member of Parliament's top priority, take a look at what else they were talking about during the recent election. What other priority areas were resonating with them? For somebody like Mike, it can just tie into so many of the other priority areas that he was hearing about from people in Kitchener Centre, and that are really important for him to bring their voices to Ottawa to continue to work on, whether it's being housing affordability or affordable housing, and making sure everyone has a safe, affordable, dignified place to call home, whether it's mental health. We know that 40% of Canadians living with a disability report that they are stressed about money often or all the time. There's also economic benefits. So by, we can infuse money into our economy by putting it into the hands of people that will use it to pay for their basic needs. So I don't know how much time we're going on for, but if I don't get a chance to speak again, just thank you again so much for inviting MP Mike Morris, for involving him in this petition. And if anyone's interested in working more on bringing this to the attention of their MPs, or have other ideas on how we can continue to reach people through this petition and just for the Canada Disability Benefit overall, don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm happy to keep working alongside all of you.
Would I just be able to quickly just say, could you be able to follow me, because I've tried to DM you, but could you be able to follow me on Twitter, and I could be able to DM you, and I could be able to set up maybe a meeting with Mike? That would be really, 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 really good. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you so much.
Does anyone else from our panelists, Rabia or Michelle, want to say anything? I was thinking then maybe we could have room for 2 more questions, one from Betty, one from John, and then after that we'll just have a final reflections from our original panel. So Betty, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. I want to say thank you to all of you for inviting me here tonight. It's been quite a while since I've been actually on anything. I do live on disability here in Ontario. I'm in London, and I've been helping to fight for because myself, I have anxiety issues and borderline personality that causes me to be quiet, and I didn't say anything for a lot of years. I want to be somebody's voice because there's too many of them who are being not heard. I have my best friend living with me because this year I couldn't afford my rent anymore. I had to move to a bigger place for my son and myself for fibro, and now paying almost $2,000 a month for rent. And we don't get much. I get penalized because my husband is also disabled and on disability. So we get penalized for that. We didn't know that until a worker from a place called Inova here in London looked into it. And yeah, the OW thought we were going to get more. Everybody did. And then we got told by ODSP, no, we're penalized for being disabled. So any help would be great. I cried at both the throne speech when Curb came out. I cried for all of that because we were barely making it. We're barely making it now, but I hope that the new year will finally bring some good luck to everybody and that wishes will start to come true. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Does anyone from our panelists want to respond to Betty? Okay, I guess we'll go ahead with John if you want to ask.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm from Ottawa South. I've been very involved with people with disabilities since 2010 when I ran against Dalton McGuinty in the provincial election for a smaller political party called the Party for People with Special Needs of Ontario, and ran in a few other elections against John Fraser as well. And I also ran against David McGuinty in 2015 as a candidate for the Canadian Green Party. And lately, we formed a group on social media called ODSP Poverty. It's caught on big time in our province and countrywide. There's various reporters that have been phoning our group and asking us a lot of questions about it. Believe it or not, we have, for the people I'm one of them that I have a doctor's note telling me that I'm not supposed to be working, but I do work. 2 Parliament sessions ago, we have an ally on the Conservative side, Pierre Poilievre, who tried to move a clawback to remove all clawbacks on people with disabilities, and the government of the day, which was Justin Trudeau, voted against it. That's one aspect we can go and look at. Another aspect is we can't go looking for 3 years, 3 years down the road. The Ford government has quoted to various media sources that they're waiting for the federal government to act, and we've been frozen for 2 years. There's also the tribunal in Ontario that the wait list is now going on 2 to 3 years for people to for their appeals to even be heard. It's very frustrating. My wife is on the tribunal, and her hearing's not until next year. And she's been there, and she's had a stroke since, minor stroke since. So I'm at wit's end right now that we're being thrown on the bus and being told to go to food banks. But 3/4 of us with people with disabilities have special diets, and food banks don't help us. So I just can't figure out why provinces can't raise their rates and stop the push for us on the on freezing budget deficits on people. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Does anyone want to respond to John?
This is Michelle. I just want to say thank you to both Betty and John for coming out, sharing their stories. Disability without poverty. Try again. Disability without poverty. We hear all of your voices, and we set out to represent the voices of those people who feel that they're not heard and often aren't heard. And we just want to tell you that we're listening, and whenever we get an opportunity to share what we hear to those that have the power to make these changes, we share it. And so I thank you for staying on this call this evening and for sharing your lives with us.
Yeah. And this is Kathy. I've been trying to get on, but I don't think anyone's noticed I've been trying to get on. I just want to echo what Michelle said. Part of what I do is amplify voices that aren't heard. So that's why I haven't said much, because I want to hear from other people. But I'll just point out that all these people and all the comments have reflected the kind of disjointed and fragmented nature of the country that we live in right now, when most of the provinces still don't have disability legislation, where the Accessible Canada Act doesn't look like it has any teeth yet, and where there's so much inequity across the country in terms of financial support. And I think one of the things, as I say, will keep on doing what I can do within my capabilities, but I also share a lot of stories with our other bureaus and nationally. But I think one of the things that would be helpful in moving, all this forward beyond the petition, because I think we really have to exercise a lot of consistency and a lot of frequency in our messaging. But one thing I would recommend is really look at local voices. Local news is incredibly compelling and influential, and I think we need to be able to raise the local voices across the country, because not everybody knows nationally what's going on in Ottawa, or what's going on in New Brunswick, or what's going on in BC. And I think if we identify local voices and actually give them some kind of platform to talk to local media, that would also help. So that would be one of the recommendations I would have. And as I say, I'm committed to, keep this going and to do what I can. And I'm happy to be a resource in terms of, any kind of media strategy you might be thinking about. I've never been one to not have an opinion. So I'm very, very happy to hear from people who want to reach out. So I'm very conscious of the time, so I'll stop there. But Michelle and others know how to get hold of me, and I'm an open book on Twitter. So talk.
Rabia?
Yes, hello.
Okay.
Sorry, I just encourage everybody to sign the petition, share it with their networks, and just help amplify our efforts. Poverty looks very different around the world. And Canada is home to people from every part of the globe. They often don't recognize what local poverty here looks like. Excuse me. And hence the lack of awareness. So let's take this opportunity to educate ourselves and the people around us and encourage them to support the movement. Join us. Visit disabilitywithoutpoverty.ca. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. But thank you for this space. This is really cool, and let's continue the conversation in other ways.
Yeah. So I don't know, Brent, if you had any closing remarks, or Rosalind, before we wrap this up. Rosalind, did you want to say anything?
Sure. I'll just once again, on behalf of MP Mike Morris, just thank everyone for coming tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you, but also to hear directly from you. This has been really a first for me as well. I know a lot of people haven't used this Twitter space before, so this is a great opportunity to have a really interactive session. I'm so glad that we were able to hear from people that were listening in tonight, and I can take all of your feedback and your stories back to Mike and the rest of our team. I know this is being recorded as well. Most of our parliamentarians are in the House of Commons along with Mike right now doing these votes, but if this is something that is going to be shared online tomorrow, I believe, I would just encourage everyone that's listening today to share the recording with your member of parliament, or I've written down a couple of really key things that people said that really resonated with me, because they're going to resonate with others as well. So share the link to this event, and keep sharing the petition, and then just reach out if you're interested in other ways of engaging with your members of parliament, or other ways that we can keep moving this entire effort forward with the petition and beyond.
Thank you so much again, Rosalind. And maybe next time we'll have better luck with actually having MP Mike Morris in person. Brent, maybe you can close us off by just letting us know where and how to find the YouTube live stream recording of this. Brent, can you unmute yourself to... Okay, well, I guess at some point we'll figure out. I know it was being live streamed onto YouTube this evening. So as soon as we figure out what that link is, we'll definitely share it on the Disability Without Poverty Twitter stream. And I'd just like to take this occasion to thank you all so very much for your time and for being willing to share your stories. And this is just to continue the conversation. I'm sure we'll figure out a way to do this again sometime. So take care and have a great evening, everyone. And thank you so much again. And if you haven't signed the petition, please go and sign it and share it with your network. Thanks and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much from Scotland, and we send solidarity to each and every one of you, and I look forward to engaging with you soon. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for having it.